Hi. There's a lot of videos that I was thinking about doing, but I didn't think I would be doing this video. But after watching the trial, the George Zimmerman trial, I wanted to say or to posture what I think actually happened. Of course, everybody has their opinion, right? Well, let me see if I can sum this up. Let's start with George Zimmerman. I believe that he was a wannabe cop. I believe that he did learn a little bit of legalese, and I believe that it's quite possible that George Zimmerman was lying when he spoke about Trayvon Martin going for his gun. However, I don't think that he could be, even on that ground, convicted, because I do believe that Trayvon Martin did indeed attack George Zimmerman, and George Zimmerman shot him. Whether it was manslaughter or not, or because Zimmerman might have been angry and then pulled the trigger on him after getting beat up, I can't say whether that happened or whether that didn't happen. But based on what's given here, we have a man who was getting beat up, and we have a kid, supposedly, that's taller than him, not a 12-year-old, who was beating him up, who did not have injuries consistent with being beat up. We have a kid who has had a record of fighting and stealing things found in his locker. We have a kid who was not so pure, and definitely not white as the driven snow, and that's not a pun to knock him being a young black man. But the young black culture that he was in, that on his tweets, and if you've seen what he said, he wanted to be called a gangsta nigga. That's what he wanted to call himself. It's not what I call him, but it's consistent with him having an attitude problem. So I believe that George Zimmerman had seen him, and it may well have been that he was casing out the houses to steal. And George Zimmerman might have had every right to, and probably would have called him all these names. So there were curse words, but that didn't mean that Zimmerman was going to get out of the car vigilante style and just shoot a kid. I don't think that even his being upset or having supposedly animosity in his heart when he said these terms, these whatever always get away, I don't think that was him wanting to go shoot somebody. I don't buy that. But I do buy that it happened as a result of him being stressed by being beat up upon, whether for whatever reason. So Trayvon Martin, now, whatever he was doing, whether he was getting out from under the rain with his Skittles and his whatever, okay, Trayvon Martin is now out of the rain and being pursued by somebody. He doesn't know who he is. There's no uniform, which I think was a mistake for him not to have a uniform or some sort of something to identify himself. Zimmerman should have looked as if he was a watch captain or something like this, so that this way at least Martin knows that he has some sort of business. Some guy's following him. Some creepy cracker. Which, by the way, Zimmerman's parents are dark. This is not racial here. I don't think that race had anything to do with it, except for that maybe it was young black gangster style people like Martin who had burglarized houses in the neighborhood before. And in that case, I would say the profiling on the basis of his color of his skin would be appropriate. just like it would be appropriate, and it's not done, that we had Muslims not being profiled by the TSA, and 85-year-old grandmothers white grandmothers being profiled to be checked for bombs. So now we have somebody who's angry, a young kid, 17-year-old kid, being followed and mad. Why? Well, first of all, I'd have to put myself in the shoes of a young black person. If a white or Caucasian or somebody who looks not black, okay, is following me, whether I'm guilty or not, okay, I might just have an attitude about that. I might not just like that idea, okay? And so maybe he didn't run away. I don't think he was scared to run away. I don't think he was a 12-year-old kid running away from the big bad guy. I think he was a young, pissed off young black guy. And I don't know whether it had to do with him being a thief or a burglar, or if it just had to do with him being angry because he was being followed. But he confronted this man that was following him. Now Zimmerman probably was walking where he was walking. He probably was looking for an address in the dark, not the street, but the address, so he could tell the cops where to go. Or maybe Zimmerman was following Trayvon Martin and didn't want him to get away, and so took those extra steps. But that doesn't matter. What proceeded to happen, I believe, is that Trayvon Martin confronted, whether it was jumping out of the bushes or whatever, George Zimmerman. What's your problem, homie? I don't have a problem. Bam! I could see it. All right, I think that that's exactly what happened. Trayvon Martin was not really happy about being followed, and had a history of hitting a bus driver before, and I think he just sucker punched. Oh well, Zimmerman's an MMA. Well, it was dark, all right, and I think maybe even with his dumpy MMA training, he had some sort of training. But I don't think he expected to get hit. I think that Trayvon Martin caught him off guard, and I think that he all of a sudden George Zimmerman was overwhelmed at this point, because I don't think there was any point. You can't see where George Zimmerman got a punch back, because you would have saw some sort of bruises or injuries consistent with a fight. I think that it wound up on the ground. I think that it wound up that Trayvon Martin was beating and pushing his head into the concrete. Makes sense, okay? I don't think that he would be able to get a clear shot on his head and just push it straight back. I think that George Zimmerman resisted, so this way that the injuries didn't look that bad, but they were consistent. And I don't know how many times he hit him, but I don't believe the prosecutor did all 4 or 5 times. I think it might have been more like 10. But you got to remember that I believe that Zimmerman was probably dodging and resisting. And I do believe that it's possible that he put his hand over his mouth, or maybe he didn't. Maybe Zimmerman made that up. Again, trying to cover his tracks, trying to make himself more legal, because this was an account that he gave afterwards, and he did have the training. But even if he did lie about that, okay, the question is this: did he feel as if he was threatened when he pulled the gun and shot Martin? I don't believe that he did it. I don't believe he shot Martin like he was going to hunt him down, like the news presented it. All right? I don't think that it was really done out of anger, because of the injuries. They weren't that bad. They were bad enough. His nose was out of place. He was cleaned up, but he was getting beat on. And I really think that, I don't think it was an angry thing. I think he was shocked. And talk about the knees up around this area. Look, when you're tussling, knees go there and here. It may well have been that Trayvon Martin, okay, had felt the gun with his knee and knew it was there. They're all trying to say that, oh, well, it's impossible. We're talking about a moving, shifting fight here. Or him trying to get out from getting hit. And it may well have been that Martin may have said those words. This is speculation on that point, but I think what happened was it could have been a combination of all of those things. It may have been that he didn't say, I'm going to kill you. Maybe Zimmerman made that up, covering his tracks. But it still doesn't negate the point that Zimmerman's getting his tail beaten, his head beaten. All right. It still doesn't negate the fact that that Trayvon Martin is not getting beaten. Trayvon Martin is definitely in command and in control, and the injuries are such that there's no way you can say that according to Florida law that you can convict him on the idea that there wasn't an idea of imminent bodily harm, because there was already a pounding on the sidewalk. there was already a broken nose. And as far as the shirt falling forward and the gunshot and the angle of the wound and all that baloney, look, I just think that it may have well been a struggle for the gun. Because if he's going to pull a gun out and Martin's on top, he wouldn't go back like this. I don't believe he would go, oh, you got me, stop, I see a gun. It didn't look like that to me. It looked like Trayvon Martin was the aggressor here. And I really, in my eyes, I don't see him backing off. I see him grabbing for the gun. So it's my contention that although Zimmerman may not have been, in the right place at the right time, he may have pursued further than he would have pursued. I don't think it was because he was intentionally going to hunt Trayvon Martin down. And I don't believe that Trayvon Martin was so innocent either. I do believe that he caused the confrontation. And I do believe that on that basis, you can't convict George Zimmerman for what happened. And it is a tragic thing for both families. For Zimmerman, who's a young man who made a mistake maybe, but didn't, it just happened the way it happened, for him to be taken away from his wife and his life, that's a tragedy. And I don't believe that, according to the law, he should be convicted on that. And of course, for the Martin family, who lost a son. But let's be honest about this. This son wasn't a little 12-year-old with innocent 12-year-old with Skittles. He wasn't. He was a 17-year-old with an attitude. And it's an unfortunate thing. I have a son who's young, and well, I don't know how much of an attitude he has, but you know what? I can't. I know he's the greatest thing in my eyes, and I can see my son getting angry if somebody's following him or something like this. I can see things escalating and getting out of control. Wanting justice, I could see being outraged if my son was hunted down. But I don't think he was hunted down. I just think it's a really a terrible tragedy, and I feel very bad for the family. Anyway, I spent a little time on this video because I think I really wanted to portray what I thought. Take care.